What if the most important relationship in your life isn't with your partner, your parents, or your closest friend? What if it's with the person staring back at you in the mirror every morning? And what if you've been treating that person like garbage for years without even realizing it? Think about how you talk to the people you love. When your best friend calls you crying about a breakup, you don't list her flaws. When your kid strikes out at the plate, you don't tell him he's worthless. You cheer. You show up. You say the kind thing, the encouraging thing, the thing that makes someone feel like they can keep going. Now, think about how you talk to yourself. Dark circles under your eyes, that stomach you hate, the deadline you're already behind on, the way you look in that photo someone tagged you in. For most people, that inner monologue runs on a loop of criticism so constant, they've stopped noticing it's even there. It's just background noise, it's just how I think. Here's the myth: almost everyone believes that self-confidence comes after you fix yourself, lose the weight, get the promotion, land a relationship, and then you'll finally deserve to feel good about who you are. Prove it first, earn it, then celebrate. Mel Robbins spent most of her adult life believing exactly that. She's a former criminal defense attorney turned one of the most in-demand motivational speakers in the world, the creator of the viral 5-second rule, and someone who, by her own account, spent decades being her own harshest critic while getting paid to build up everyone else. And then one ordinary morning, standing at her bathroom sink in her underwear, exhausted and overwhelmed, she did something almost by accident. She raised her hand and gave her own reflection a high five. That's it. That's the whole discovery. And what happened next, backed by research from Harvard, UC Berkeley, MIT, and a neuroscience lab studying dyslexia, is what this video is about. The core idea of the high five habit is simple. You cannot think your way into loving yourself, but you can act your way into it. And the smallest, most repeatable action wins. A high five costs nothing, takes 2 seconds, and rewires how your brain treats the person you'll spend the rest of your life with, yourself. In this video, we're going to walk through 10 lessons from this book. Why your brain is wired to torture you. The invisible filter deciding what you notice about your own life. Why jealousy isn't your enemy. Why guilt makes you a liar. And the exact tools Mel Robbins uses to calm a racing heart, break a procrastination spiral, and trust her life even when it makes no sense in the moment. Let's get into it. High five in the mirror. Here's the core principle: the way you greet yourself first thing in the morning sets the tone for your entire day, and most people greet themselves with contempt. Most people wake up, glance in the mirror, and immediately start editing. The hair, the skin, the extra weight, the tired eyes. Before they've even had coffee, they've already told themselves a dozen unkind things. Then they walk out that bathroom door and spend the rest of the day being generous, encouraging, and patient with literally everyone else. Coworkers get the benefit of the doubt. Kids get praised for trying. Strangers on the road get forgiven. But the one relationship that shapes every other relationship in their life, the one they have with themselves, gets nothing but criticism. The people who break that pattern do something almost embarrassingly simple. They stand in front of the mirror, take a second to actually see the person looking back, not just the surface, and then they raise their hand and give themselves a high five. No speech required, no mantra needed, just the gesture. Mel discovered something strange when she started doing this. It's physically difficult to think something cruel about yourself while your hand is touching the mirror in celebration. Try saying "I hate my stomach" out loud while high-fiving your reflection. It doesn't land. Your brain has spent your entire life associating a high five with being proud of someone, and it doesn't know how to file that feeling under self-hatred. So for a few seconds, your inner critic goes quiet. The exercise is dead simple, and it only has 2 steps. Stand in front of your bathroom mirror before you touch your phone or let the outside world in. Look past your appearance for a second and actually see yourself. Then raise your hand and high-five your reflection. Don't overthink it, and don't wait to feel like doing it. Your relationship with yourself doesn't start when you've earned it. It starts the next time you walk past a mirror. Your brain is already wired to believe it. Here's the principle. This isn't a feel-good trick. It's neuroscience, and the research is almost too consistent to ignore. Most people assume affirmations and positive self-talk are the answer to low self-worth. Stand in the mirror, say, "I love myself" 50 times, and eventually your brain will believe it. Except researchers have found the opposite tends to happen. If you don't already believe the words coming out of your mouth, your mind quietly argues back and rejects them. Saying, "I am confident" when you don't feel confident just reminds your brain of the gap between the two. People who actually shift their self-image use something different. Physical action paired with a feeling they already trust. Researchers studying kids working through difficult tasks found something surprising. Kids praised for being smart lost motivation fastest. Kids praised for effort did better. But the kids who were simply given a high five stayed the most positive about themselves and kept working the longest, even after mistakes. Researchers at UC Berkeley found the same pattern in the NBA teams that high-fived each other the most at the start of the season were the ones who made it deepest into the playoffs. It wasn't talent that predicted the outcome. It was trust, expressed physically, over and over. There's a name for why this works on a brain-level: neurobics, a concept developed by Duke researcher Dr. Lawrence Katz. When you pair a routine action, like looking in a mirror, with something unexpected involving your senses, like a high five, and an emotion you want to feel, your brain snaps to attention and builds a new neural pathway around that feeling. It's the same mechanism used in learning interventions for kids with dyslexia. Do something familiar in an unfamiliar way, and the brain pays closer attention to what you're teaching. Here's the exercise every day before you touch your phone. Do the high five in the mirror, and let it be the first unexpected sensory input of your day. You're not performing a ritual. You're training a muscle in your brain that already knows how to celebrate someone. You're just finally aiming it at yourself. The takeaway is this. You don't need to convince your brain you're worthy with words. You need to show it, physically, until the belief catches up. Why do you torture yourself? Here's the principle: you weren't born critical of yourself. Somewhere along the way you learned it, and you can unlearn it. Most people assume their harsh inner voice is just who they are, a fixed personality trait, like eye color. But watch a baby in front of a mirror sometime. They don't wince. They press their whole face against the glass and laugh. Self-acceptance is the default setting we're all born with. Something happens between that moment and adulthood that flips the switch. Psychologists call it a break in belonging. At some point, most people get the message, subtly or brutally, that there's something wrong with them. Maybe you were the new kid. Maybe you were teased for how you looked or talked. Maybe a parent was critical of themselves, and without meaning to, passed that same harshness down to you. Kids don't have the tools to process pain rationally. When something hard happens to them, they almost always turn it inward and conclude it must be their fault. That belief gets buried, and it becomes the quiet operating system running your adult life. The people who eventually break free of this stop trying to argue themselves out of the belief with logic, because logic doesn't work here. You can list someone's accomplishments all day long, and it won't dent a belief that's been reinforced since childhood. What actually works is starting from a place of acceptance instead of a battle to fix what's supposedly broken. Try this the next time you're in front of a mirror. Instead of hunting for flaws, look for one thing you genuinely appreciate about yourself. Not your appearance necessarily. Your resilience. Your humor. The fact that you're still standing after everything you've survived. Then seal it with a high five. You are not broken. You are blocked. and blocks can be cleared. Meet the bouncer in your brain. Here's the principle. There's a filter in your brain deciding, in real time, what evidence you get to see about your own life, and right now, it might be working against you. Most people think their negative outlook is just an accurate read on reality. They're not pessimistic, they tell themselves, they're just realistic. But your brain has a structure called the reticular activating system, or ROS, that filters out roughly 99% of the information around you so you don't drown in it. Whatever you repeat to yourself over and over, your ROS decides is important, and it starts hunting for proof. Think about buying a new car and suddenly seeing that exact model everywhere on the road. Those cars were always there. Your brain just didn't think they mattered before. The same mechanism runs on self-belief. If your default thought is, "I always mess everything up," your RAS will go to work finding evidence to confirm it, and it will ignore the evidence that contradicts it. It's not being cruel, it thinks it's helping you. People who manage to shift their whole outlook on life do one specific thing. They deliberately retrain what they tell their RAS is important, and they give it new evidence to search for. Here's an exercise straight from the book for 1 week. Look for a naturally occurring heart shape somewhere in your day. In a coffee stain, a cloud, a crack in the sidewalk. It sounds silly, but it proves a point fast. Once you tell your brain to look for hearts, you start seeing them everywhere, and they were always there. You just weren't looking. Pair that with a meaningful mantra, something you actually believe, like, "I have my own back," or "I'm allowed to be a work in progress," and repeat it daily until your RAS starts treating it as the new headline of your life. The takeaway: change what you tell your brain to look for, and you change what your life appears to be made of. Jealousy isn't the villain you think it is. Here's the principle: jealousy isn't proof that something's wrong with you. It's a signpost pointing straight at what you actually want. Most people feel a flash of jealousy scrolling social media, watching a friend's win, or hearing about someone else's success, and immediately feel guilty about it. They shove the feeling down and slap on a smile, because jealous people are supposed to be small and petty, right? So they perform happiness for someone else while quietly resenting them, which is exhausting and solves nothing. People who use jealousy productively do something different. Instead of judging the feeling, they get curious about it. If someone else's achievement stings, that sting is data. It's telling you something you want for yourself, something you may have buried or convinced yourself you don't actually care about anymore. The exercise here is a flip. Next time jealousy hits, instead of thinking, "Must be nice for them," try reframing it as, "That's evidence it's possible." The people who are already living the life you want aren't blocking your path. In a lot of ways, they're proof the path exists. Jealousy isn't the enemy. It's a compass. Stop apologizing for it and start reading it. Guilt is making you a liar. Here's the principle: most of what you call guilt isn't about protecting other people's feelings. It's about managing your own fear of being disliked. Most people believe other people make them feel guilty. Your dad gives you a gift you don't have room for, and you feel obligated to keep it forever. Your friend asks a favor you don't have time for, and you say yes anyway. You avoid the honest conversation because keeping the peace feels safer than risking disappointment. Mel tells a story about a giant antique pool table her father gave her as a wedding gift, one that ate up her home office for years, because she couldn't bring herself to have the conversation about moving it. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The book lays out, guilt is self-inflicted. It's not really about the other person, it's about your own fear that if they're disappointed in you, they'll stop loving you. And to avoid that fear, you end up managing their emotions for them by lying, through your actions if not your words, about what you actually want. People who get their life back start by separating two things that feel identical, but aren't: someone being upset with a decision and someone withdrawing their love. Those are not the same thing. You can disappoint someone and still be loved by them. Try this flip swap. If someone is upset with my decision, they'll stop loving me. For people can be disappointed in me and still love me completely. Then have the honest conversation you've been avoiding. Guilt feels like loyalty, but it's usually just fear wearing a nicer outfit. Nobody's thinking about you as much as you think. Here's the principle. The approval you're chasing exists almost entirely in your own head. Most people spend enormous energy managing how they're perceived, what to wear, what to say, which parts of themselves to hide so they don't seem too loud, too different, too much. It starts in middle school. And for most people, it never really stops. Mel tells a story about becoming a life coach in 2001. Before that job title meant anything to anyone, and freezing at a party when a stranger asked what she did for a living. She was convinced he thought it was ridiculous. He didn't. He became her first client. Here's what people who stop performing for others eventually figure out: your insecurities live in your head, not in theirs. Whatever critical voice you carry around, you unconsciously assume everyone else is thinking it too. But most people are far too consumed with their own inner critic to be running a detailed audit of yours. The exercise is simple but takes guts. The next time you catch yourself editing who you are to be liked, ask, "Do I like this?" instead of, "Will they like this?" That one substitution changes the entire decision. You'll never fully stop caring what people think, and you shouldn't, but you can stop letting it drive. Beating the procrastination spiral. Here's the principle: you're not lazy, unfocused, or a chronic procrastinator. You're scared, and vague timelines let fear win by default. Most people with a big dream keep it at arm's length forever, circling it endlessly instead of moving toward it. When the time is right, when I have more savings, when the kids are older. Mel tells the story of an Uber driver named Eduardo, 25 years old, with a dream of acting and helping other young men from his community break into the industry. When she asked when he was moving to pursue it, his answer was a year or two. Vague enough to feel like progress, vague enough to never actually happen. The people who eventually act on their dreams do one thing differently. They set a real deadline, not soon, a date. A deadline drags a dream out of your head and plants it in the physical world where it has to be dealt with. The exercise: pick the thing you've been circling for months or years and give it an actual date, not a feeling. Mel gave Eduardo 3 weeks. Give yourself whatever's realistic, but make it specific enough that you can't quietly let it slide. Procrastination isn't a character flaw, it's fear with really good PR. A deadline calls its bluff. A high five to your heart. Here's the principle: you cannot talk yourself out of anxiety while your nervous system still believes you're in danger. Most people, when panic or dread hits, try to think their way out of it. They reason with themselves, list evidence that everything is fine, and wonder why the fear doesn't budge. Mel experienced this hard during the early days of the pandemic, when her show got canceled. Her income disappeared overnight, and she woke up every morning with dread rolling from her ankles to her chest, a feeling she eventually traced back to childhood trauma living in her nervous system. What actually worked wasn't logic. It was a physical reset. She'd put her hand on her heart, take a deep breath, and repeat 3 sentences. I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm loved. That gesture activates something called the vagus nerve, the longest nerve in your body, which runs from your brain to nearly every organ and controls your body's ability to switch out of fight or flight and into calm. Neuroscientist Dr. Judy Willis explains it this way. When you're in a stress state, Your brain physically blocks new information from reaching the parts responsible for learning and change. You have to calm the body before you can shift the mind. The exercise when anxiety hits: hand on heart, deep breath, and say, out loud if you can, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. Say your own name if it helps. Mel, you're safe. Works because your brain is wired to pay attention the second it hears your name. Repeat it as many times as you need. You can't outthink a nervous system in survival mode, but you can put your hand on your chest and remind it the danger is past. Trusting the dots you can't connect yet. Here's the principle: some of the most important moves in your life will make zero sense while you're making them, and that's not a red flag. That's just how growth works. Most people wait for total certainty before making a big change. They want the spreadsheet to add up, the path to be obvious, proof that it'll work out before they commit. Mel resisted a major life change for years, insisting her family's future was in Boston, dismissing her son's instinct that he needed a different school in a different state entirely. It took an unexpected, almost inexplicable moment for her to finally listen and trust something she couldn't fully justify with logic. People who eventually build a life that actually fits them stop demanding certainty up front. They follow what feels true, even when it looks irrational from the outside, and they trust that the dots will connect looking backward, even if they can't connect them looking forward. There's no single mirror exercise for this one. The practice is bigger. Notice when a decision keeps circling back to you, refusing to leave you alone, even when you've logically ruled it out. That persistence is information. Listen to it. You don't need the whole map. You just need the courage to take the next step in front of you. Here's the shift this entire book is asking you to make. Stop treating self-worth as something you have to earn through achievement, and start treating it as something you build through small, repeated acts of kindness toward yourself, starting today, exactly as you are. None of this means life gets easy. Mel is clear about that throughout the book. Discomfort, fear, failure, and hard conversations don't disappear once you start high-fiving yourself in the mirror. What changes is your relationship with those moments. You stop treating every hard thing as proof that something's wrong with you, and you start treating it as information you can work with. Let's run through the toolkit one more time. Start every morning with a high five to your reflection, before your phone, before the noise gets in. Catch the story you're telling yourself, and remember your RAS is out there hunting for evidence to prove it. Treat jealousy as a compass, not a confession. Separate someone's disappointment from their love for you. Ask, do I like this? Not will they like this. Give your dream an actual deadline instead of a vague someday. When anxiety hits, hand on heart, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. And when a decision won't leave you alone, trust it, even before it makes sense. That's it. That's the whole book, distilled down to action small enough to do before you've even had coffee. If this summary gave you something worth sitting with, hit subscribe here on the Mind Master, because we break down one book like this every single week. But don't just watch it and move on. Go stand in front of a mirror tomorrow morning before you touch your phone and give yourself a high five. See what happens. Turn the theory into power.